Welcome, I'm Kat. Obviously, this is my esteemed co-host. This is Fergus this morning. I was just saying to him that on Zoom, I'm a really nosy person. I like to see in everyone's bedrooms and kitchens and wherever they're doing their meetings from. So in the spirit of reciprocation, everyone likes a good pain cave. There we are.
That's a good setup.
Yeah. There are 3 people in our house, just in case people are like, that's too many bikes. There's never too many bikes, but there are 3 people in the house. So that's fair enough. So I've been put in charge of safety briefing this morning. So we'd prefer people over the age of 18 to be taking part. Is that correct, Ferg?
Yeah.
Make sure that your turbos are all well attached to your bike, that your bike's in good working order, that you are physically and mentally capable of doing this session. Is very, very tough work on the brain this morning. Physically capable of doing the session. If you don't feel well, then please stop. Don't continue. Just for your reference, we'll be using, I have the session all booked on Zwift for me, so I don't need to do any thinking. I'll be telling you what to do. That's very directive. I will be telling you what to do. I would encourage you to follow the instructions. And I'll be giving some perceived rate of exertion so that you can work out what level we're working at. It's the idea behind this one is that you should be able to ask questions, because I'd like you to be able to pick my brain and Ferg's brain. So you shouldn't ever be working hard enough that you can't type into the chat, and I shouldn't ever be working hard enough that I can't answer the questions. So the actual intensity of today's session is quite low. It's an endurance session. It's something that I would build on for Ironman and half Ironman. So you won't be working too hard. So if you think you're going to get a really, really hard, sweaty workout, then you might need to get back on your turbo later on today. Okay, without further ado, we're just going to start a progressive 15-minute warm-up. Nice and easy. We'll do 10 minutes where we're gradually increasing the effort level, and we'll finish it off with a few bursts at our kind of threshold effort level just to fully warm up. So if you just start pedaling now, the time on my screen is 1 second elapsed. I will keep you right. So the idea here is we just go from really recovery effort up to an endurance effort. So really perceived rate of exertion on about starting on 1, rising to 3 over the first 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
Sounds boring, actually.
Is this a session that you have done a few times?
This is a session that I would gradually, over the course of a season, kind of increase in length and duration of intervals.
Okay.
So, for example, in an Ironman bike, say on a weekend when you do your long bike, I would build this to a half-hour warm-up, and then I would do intervals that were varying in length between 15 and 30 minutes at my Ironman target effort level. So you can see the theory in this workout is pretty similar. It's just condensed into an hour. So what we'll be doing is 3 by 10 minutes at our endurance sort of effort level, but we'll pepper a few tempo efforts in there just so we don't fall asleep, basically. So as I say, it's not, I will put up my hand now and say it's not the most interesting of workouts, but the theory is that we're going to be doing, like I say, that Ironman kind of half Ironman tempo, and that we'll be able to field questions and hopefully answers.
Yeah. I've got plenty of questions to ask you anyway. So. Yeah, I hope you're ready for a bit of a grilling.
Well, I should have included the safety briefing. Make sure that small animals aren't in the room. Scallywags just entered the room. She has a habit of trying to run under the bike and gets clocked on the head with the pedals.
What did you say?
Scallywag.
Oh,
Yeah. She's been out in the snow. It's snowing here today for anyone who gets jealous of snow.
Just wet in Stirling.
Yeah, it's quite wet snow here too. I don't think it's not going to be useful snow.
So I'm just aware that I didn't get to really introduce you there, Cap, because due to my technical error.
Actually, no, it's probably that I just took over.
So yeah, Triathlon Scotland, we're really lucky to have Cap today doing this because she's a bit of a legend of Scottish triathlon. She's 2 times duathlon world champion, 2 times long distance world champion, 2 times European duathlon champion, bronze medalist at the long distance world triathlon champs.
Oh, I forgot about that.
In Lorient, was it Lorient?
In Lorient, yeah. I've got a story about that race. That's right.
And multiple Ironman 70.3 and Ironman champion. So yeah, pretty lucky to have Kat join us today and answer some questions. And I don't know, I'm quite excited to hear the background in all of them racing your career. So yeah,
Dishing the dirt.
Good. Workout.
I'd completely forgotten about that race in Lorient. So the reason there's a story about that race is actually it's the first time I ever raced Chrissy Wellington.
Okay.
That's where we became friends, and it's also the first and last time I ever beat her.
Oh.
Now, not many people can say that.
Not many.
Which is really, really spooky because we were actually on the phone last night and I hadn't spoken to her in ages. Okay. But that's not the story. The story in Lorient was that we had a race briefing and it was, the usual, make sure your number belt is on, make sure your number belt is in the right position, blah, blah, blah. And my number actually detached from my number belt at some point during the race, as they sometimes do. But we all know that none of us take our numbers and willfully rip them from our bodies and throw them in the gutter, unless you're having a really rude word time, which I don't recommend. Anyway, so I didn't have a number, and this official on the run, and I think I was lying in 3rd place at this time, jumped out in front of me and physically blocked my path. Like, you cannot go any further. You must stop. You don't have a number on.
Really? And
I was like, okay, never had this happen before. And I was about to lie down and take it. I was like, okay. And then I thought, well, no, I'm not taking this because it's really unfair. I'm just going to keep running. And then it all went to, let's have an inquiry, blah, blah, blah. And the end was that they didn't disqualify me and I came 3rd at the World Championships. But I wouldn't have come 3rd if I'd actually done what the official had told me. So I don't know if that's a good cautionary tale about ignoring an official or standing up for yourself.
No, I think, I think
you decide.
That when you're in that kind of race, like you don't really, all you're thinking about is getting to the finish line and trying to hold your position. So it's more like the mindset that you go into when you're racing.
Yeah, and I think, obviously I did have a little bit of red mist, but also the logical part of my brain is going, well, I've not done anything terrible, really not broken the rules. Yeah, and I think, so, I was prepared to have that conversation at the end of the race.
Yeah. Have you got any questions?
Fireman. So we're now about 2.5 minutes to go in our 10 minutes, just easy spinning. Start to increase your effort level just a little bit, and then over the course of the next 5 or so minutes, we're going to do 3 efforts of 30 seconds apiece at your threshold effort level. So we're looking for you to bump up your RPE all the way up to kind of, what would you say, Ferg, 6 to 7?
Yeah.
Pretty, you know,
Yeah.
pretty hard going in the heart and lungs.
Yeah.
But we're only doing it for 30 seconds, so it's short-lived.
Yeah, so we've had a question already, actually, Kat, from Niall McCluskey, and he's asking you if you are a full-time athlete.
If I am at the moment?
Yeah.
No, I'm a full-time dot around right now. And so I retired from professional triathlon in 2015. I think my head and my heart would say that I'm a full-time athlete. My body says you're well past it and you're over the hill, and do not call on me like you used to. But I still keep very active. I don't compete in triathlon because I don't want anything to be directly comparable, because I think I wouldn't be able to cope with that yet. Okay. That's 6 years now. But I do still like to race. I do some mountain running. I'll try and do some interesting gravel racing coming up now on the calendar, which interests me. Yeah. So yeah, I'm still out there. Well, there's an event in the summer actually. Well, there's a lot of events coming up in and around the World Championships in Glasgow. Yeah. So some gravel racing around that. I've never done any gravel racing, but I've got a gravel bike last year. I'll come back to that in a second. So I'm just looking at what's coming up. 10 seconds, people. We're going to do our first 30-second effort where I'm not going to be able to talk to you. 5 seconds, 2, 1. So 30 seconds effort at threshold. Oh, my legs are loving this. Yeah. I did quite a hard session last night.
Oh, did you?
Oh.
So you weren't tapering for this session?
Yeah. Well, I had lots to eat for my dinner. That counts. Now we just go for a minute. Easy spin again. So yeah, I haven't ever done a gravel race yet, Ferg. No idea what to expect, but where I live at the moment, don't have a great density of road network to ride the road bike on, and the gravel bike has just effectively given me roads to ride on into the estates, and
so it's
been
completely different riding to what you used to.
Really loving it. Okay, now 15 seconds and we'll do one more 30-second burst.
My bike's breaking.
Okay, on we go. Just try and pitch up your cadence a little bit. So for those of you who do a running warm-up when you do strides, it's very similar on the bike, just working at higher intensity, essentially to open your system up, get everything going. Okay, another minute's rest. While Ferg kicks his chainring into position.
Trying to make it quiet.
So my gears weren't shifting a couple of weeks ago, and I'd entered the Hope route on Zwift, and there were 3 events. And I kind of casually said to my husband, "Not shifting very well," and he's like, "Well, I'll just have a quick look at it." Like about half an hour before the next race started, full on, everything removed from the bike. and it's got it's because it's sweated so much. Like, everything had seized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, 5 seconds and we'll do our last 30-second effort. On we go.
So sorry, Kat, I'm quite interested to hear about how you got into triathlon and kind of your early days in the sport. What was your inspirations and things like that, getting into the sport?
Yeah, so I think for me, I started triathlon at a time where it was still relatively in its infancy as a commercial sport or a known sport. That's us back down to a minute nice and easy spin. And after this minute, we'll go into our first 10-minute interval. We're going to ride it 10 minutes at what you perceive to be your endurance level. So we should be in and around RPE 3 to 4 and just steady for 10 minutes. So nothing to think about for the first interval, which is the way I like it. Sorry, Ferg, coming back to your question. Yeah, when I first started triathlon, it was kind of, doing triathlon seemed to be the thing that broken people did, if that makes any sense. So ex-swimmers or ex-runners mostly. Okay, so we're just going to start our 10 minutes, getting into that endurance pace, what you think would be your pace for an Ironman. A little bit harder if you're doing a half Ironman. So for me, if you're working on a color-coded system, you're sitting kind of at the top end of your blue in your endurance zone. So I swam when I was a kid at Montgomery's Den Swimming Club, where, for those of you who can remember, Alison Shepherd, she was a few years older than me, but he was off to the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games, but was in the lane right next to me swimming. Yeah. And that was always really kind of inspirational. But as a swimmer, I kind of peaked at about 14, didn't get much faster. All my friends were moving to the top squad, and I became isolated from my peer group, and I didn't want to swim anymore. And it's a very common story, but when we think about inclusion in sport, that was me. I was excluded from an activity that either real or perceived that I took part in, and I took that fitness and I started running just for the school, and I went to the Great Scottish Run, and they had a junior run, and I smashed it. Yeah. I won it, and people were like, "Oh, who's this?" And got involved with City of Glasgow Athletics Club and started running. And then when I went to uni, I went over to Canada to do my master's and got injured and needed surgery on my knee, and bought a bike. And the rest, they say, my friend, is history. Started triathlon just because it was a good way to cross train, really.
So you got into it relatively a bit later than kind of, you didn't go through the junior ranks and things?
Yeah, I was like in my kind of early 20s.
And how did you find that transition, like from with competing against athletes that have gone through kind of racing as a junior and things? Did you find it quite natural? Or?
Yeah, so I pretty massive engine. And so yeah, I turned up on the scene. It was like, oh, who's this? Because I was just winning races, because I was already so fit from the running. Now, interestingly, when I went back to swimming, so I stopped swimming when I was, say, 14, 15, didn't start again until I was 21, 22. And it used to be, and I cringe now, in a positive way, when I swam, I wasn't super fast. I think my PB for 100 front crawl was 65 seconds, 64. Decent, but not, not setting the world alight. But my technique was beautiful, and coaches and their athletes would come in line up beside the pool to be shown what good technique looked like. Now, you wouldn't do that now with my swimming. So when I started swimming again, I didn't take any instruction. I just went in and I totally messed my swimming up. Never got it back because I just rewired and reprogrammed my body the wrong way. And I spent a lot of time in triathlon fixating on the swimming in that whole, if you think about an asset-based approach, where it's all very positive, you work on your strengths, you maximize your strengths, but I was always looking to work on my weakness, which absolutely you have to do, but almost to the detriment of a little bit of my well-being, like really fixating on, oh, I'm such a bad swimmer. Every time I get out of the pool, the swim, first thing I do is like look for my lonely bike because I know I'll be the only one in transition.
A bit like that.
So,
yeah. My swimming is my weak point. You kind of think too much about that being a weakness, and I think it's really important to kind of also remember that your strengths, you can rely on them as well. And you obviously really did that well, and that's quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I didn't work on my swimming, I absolutely did. And I got it to a point where it was solid, but it was never going to be a first pack swimmer. If I'm racing, I'm always racing from behind, which is fine. But you just have to learn to work with that and get the best out of it.
Yeah, you've just got to accept it and kind of be in the mindset that you know that you're going to have to work hard on the bike and the run. So yeah, I've got a question here on the chat. What is the worst weather conditions you faced in? I remember a 40-mile-an-hour headwind in European Duathlon qualifiers at Stirling University. You must have seen much worse. That's from James Carrigan.
James, I think these questions are a little bit like asking a woman like childbirth. Not that I've ever had a child, but you like you say, like you do these races in really bad conditions. You're like, I'll never do that again, and then you sign yourself back up. Just trying to think of don't think there's a specific. There's a couple of. Now let me think. Gullen. I have swum in the cauldron at Gullen when the conditions of the sea have just been so brutal. So that was more kind of the weather affecting the sea conditions. I love this story. Alpe d'Huez Triathlon is a really amazing event, and you swim in a lake, which you don't usually get to do because it's a hydropower dam. It's very cold, and the first year I did that race, it was just not very pleasant. Pretty cold in the water, not a very nice day. You are in the mountains, and got out onto the bike and catch up to Rebecca Keat, Australian triathlete. I mean, you're just polite. You're like, how are you today? Oh, I'm fine. I was like, oh, it's a wee bit nippy, isn't it? Like, because it was a wee bit nippy. It snowed at the top of the Alp in the middle of summer when we were on the running portion. But Rebecca pulled out because the Scottish person had said how cold it was. And in her head, she's like, oh crap. If Kat says it's cold, it genuinely means that it's cold.
I think that's one of the advantages of living in Scotland, that you kind of get used to those really tough conditions.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it is tough on race day, then you can kind of use that and make it to your advantage.
Yeah, I mean, when I did a really good race at Half Ironman World Championships in where's that place in the desert? Vegas, baby. Well, yeah, woke up the day of the race, full on mental rain, and athletes who would never go out cycling in the rain, completely dumbfounded by the conditions, completely unable to ride their bikes technically in the rain. And it was warm rain, Fergus. It wasn't cold rain. Yeah, so I think definitely. Okay, sorry, people, I've been chatting so much. You can relax now for a little spin for 2 minutes before we go to the next interval. So yeah, there is a lot to be said about getting the toughness of the Scottish conditions.
Yeah. So you, I think you got your first world medal in 2005, was it? It was silver at the World Duathlon Champs.
Oh yeah, I love this. It's like a wee trip down memory lane.
Yeah. So do you think that medal changed your mindset and kind of made you want to go on to winning World Champs one day?
Yeah, I think it definitely said, okay, kind of kicked me out of a little bit of the imposter syndrome, into the, this is possible, and you can reach for more. I mean, and that was like almost like a dream team of, at the time there was Michelle Dillon, Andrea Whitcomb, and myself, and we were first, second, third that year. And actually, interestingly, when you were saying, did it push you on? I was ahead on the bike with a Belgian girl, and I made a breakaway from her, and the race officials drove up to me and said, you have to pull off the course, you're going to be lapped. And it was like an 8-lap course or something. And I was like, no, I'm doing the lapping. I'm the person in front. And I got onto the run, and I think it showed a whole lot of lack of self-confidence, that all I was fixated on in the run. Sorry, people, 5 seconds, and we're going into 1 by 8 minute at your endurance effort again. So pushing it back up. And we'll finish this interval off by going 2 minutes into a kind of tempo effort. So you'll be up in the green. So we'll take your effort level back up to kind of 5-6 on your RPE. So yeah, on the run, I was fixated by the fact that I had Michelle Dillon and Andrea Whitcomb of, Olympic level runner behind me. And when Michelle came past me, it was kind of like, well, I know my place. That's fine because she should win, and I'm really lucky to be here. So yeah, that's an interesting reflection.
Okay, that's interesting. Then the year after, you went on and won.
Yeah.
Who was second then? Was that Michelle as well? Or?
I think it was a British girl. Just trying to remember. It was a British girl whose name was also confusingly Michelle.
Okay. And was that in Canada?
Yeah, that was in Cornerbrook.
Canada.
The thing about international racing is that it's really diverse in terms of the places that you visit. And I think when I was racing, it's a little bit more kind of, I don't want to say hick, but a little bit more diversity in the places that could hold races, because it hadn't become so commercial that you needed the large amount of finance and everything else behind you as a race organizer. So you would get small places like Cornerbrook with enough money from their town or their region's development corporation or tourist strategy to hold an event. Because let's face it, you'd never go to Cornerbrook for your hollybobs. However, having been there in that part of the world, I'd probably go, oh, I might visit there again. But yeah, so really big diversity of locations.
Yeah. And we've had a question from Penny Rother.
Penny!
Yeah. So which is your favourite, which was the performance you are most proud of?
I think the World Duathlon Champs in Edinburgh, where I won for a couple of different reasons, or a few different reasons. And all these seem really cliched, but as an athlete, you don't often get to race in your home country at a top level race. And it's like a thank you to everyone that supported you along the way. So there is an added level of pressure that you put on yourself. But to be able to say thank you in that way was really special.
Yeah. This will be amazing to kind of, that whole day of even just racing and then going on to win in front of the home crowd and family. Must be amazing.
And also really cool to think, in the morning I got up, had my breakfast in the house in Broxburn, went for a wee jog along the canal as per usual, and then in the afternoon was doing an international race. So that was quite cool.
I think I was actually there that day watching.
Did they give you my autograph?
Yeah, you did.
I can still furnish you with that pair, But the actual race, well, and people still talk about it. Those of you who know Maisie was working on transition that day as an official, and I came riding in, totally overshot the line in my over exuberance, nearly fell off the bike. And Maisie's like, oh crap, I've got to penalise her. And sure enough, on the run, got to the turnaround, kind of a quarter of the way up Arthur's Seat, and the board of shame. It's like, Morrison, 15 seconds, stand in the penalty box. And I've been having this.
Penalties in your career.
Yeah, I'll tell you about the other one. But I've been having this total ding dong with Sandra, La Française. And she'd done no frigging work on the bike. I was totally livid. And there we are running. And I'm like, the only way I'm going to win this race is by having a stellar run. And then, of course, I'm running with her, and I've got this 15-second penalty. And I was like, you have never seen anyone run so possessed. Because I thought, how ridiculous that you were just about to throw away a World Championships in your own back garden because you made a very junior mistake. And oh my God, did I run. And picked up the Scottish flag from my brother on the side who was watching and won. And it's one of the sort of, I guess, my dad died in 2012, and to have that moment as a family was really cool. So that's another reason, another cliched reason why it was so important. There was a third reason, I can't even remember it.
Penny just message saying we were very proud that day too.
Yes.
Nice. And we've had a message from Niall again, and he's asking what's your half and full PB.
Oh, my full PB, and the only reason I remember this is because it was a debut world beating time, is I think 8:48.11 or 8:47.11, something like that. That was Roth, and in good giggling fashion, my Garmin quite clearly demonstrates the 10 minutes that I spent either stationary through vomiting or expulsions at the other end into the German countryside on that run. So if I had the time again, I'd like to think I could take 10 minutes off that. And I don't know the half, the fastest half. Fastest half was probably a race in Panama, where we swam in the Panama Canal. And the Panama Canal has a massive flow, huge, unbelievable. Sorry people, 5 seconds, we're going up for 2 minutes. Just slightly harder into your tempo, where talking will become more challenging. And so go and line up for the race start. And the lifeguards are getting in the water and they're just going, whoop, and they're disappearing because the flow is so fast. And we get in the water, we're all hanging on to poles. And the guy's like, swim back to the line. We're all like, we can't. And it was like, I think it was seriously a 15-minute swim.
Current assistant.
Absolutely. So this should feel a little bit tougher. You wouldn't want to be having a long in-depth conversation, but it should feel comfortably uncomfortable. So we're a minute through, just another minute.
Okay, so we'll go on to kind of your transition from duathlon, like longer distance ITU stuff, into Ironman and 7.3. How did you find that, or was it kind of you doing both at the same time, or how did that come about?
So if I take a step back, the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne in, is that 2004? 2006, yeah, sorry. Were a massive, massive disappointment. So when I went to Commonwealth Games in Manchester in 2002, I could count on one hand how many full standard distance triathlons I'd done. And so that's us easing back down 2 minutes, nice easy spin. So in terms of my progression in triathlon and position in the race, they were about not far off kind of expected, not personally expected, because you always set yourself really high expectations. But when it came to 2006, I'd had 4 years of being a professional athlete and having all this time and energy and commitment pumped into me and giving it of myself, and in Melbourne, to the point where I felt ashamed, and that's hard. You should never feel shamed by something you love. I felt guilty for all the effort that everyone had put in my behalf, and I just thought, I don't think I can do this anymore. So I started work full time as an active schools coordinator in West Lothian, and at that point just still wanted to race, but had to give myself headspace. And I think when I did the Duathlon World Champs that year, it had given me the time between March and September to kind of work through what I wanted to do. And the World Duathlon Champs kind of thought, right, okay, if you can win a World Championships, you shouldn't be giving up on yourself right now. But I didn't want to. I wanted to really concentrate on my strengths, and I wanted to do a bike ride where I could ride the legs off whoever was there, because it's my bike ride. And sorry, we're just going up. I'm not paying attention, Ferg.
Oh, yeah.
For the next 2 minutes, you're going to go into tempo for 2 minutes, then we'll do 6 minutes at endurance and then 2 minutes at tempo. So we're back up into tempo effort for 2 minutes. So yeah, I thought I'm going to start doing the half distance stuff, working where I feel confident and comfortable. And that's how the half Ironman stuff started. And then the Ironman, I can distinctly remember saying one would want to remove one's brain and put it in a box before I ever did an Ironman.
Yeah, I still can't get my head around doing an Ironman yet. But
yeah, my body type is not an Ironman body type. I'm definitely a type 2 muscle fiber girl. So half Ironman for me is my sweet spot. I can work hard and consistently in that effort level. Not so good at the holding on to the endurance. Still decent, but not, I'd say, completely matched to my body.
I was reading about a race you did in Ironman Texas 2010.
Yeah.
You got a mechanical.
Oh no, Lanzarote.
Lanzarote. Okay.
No, 10 seconds at tempo, and then we'll take it down to 6 minutes at endurance. Yeah, that's a funny race as well. I love this. Yeah. So halfway through the bike, those of you who've ever been to Lanzarote in Teguise, I got up out the saddle to push up over one of the wee hills, and my chain broke. I was like, unexpected. Because generally, like, and find it would work. I'd visualize all the bad things that could happen in a race. I mean, I know that's a pretty exhaustive list, but the main ones, like, you go the wrong way, you get a puncture, you drop your food. I'd visualize those moments, and I'd visualize the positive response. I had never visualized breaking the chain. And I was like, oh, what do I do now? So got off the bike and I thought, well, they send one of these, you know, they've always got support. So the support will be around. So God knows where the support was. Anywho, I had a drink, some food, began to wave at everyone, give all competitors the thumbs up, and started talking to the people watching, practicing my Spanish, and just kind of thinking, right, well, okay, the reason you're here is to get your slot for Kona. That's probably not going to happen now, but you've just spent a ton of money and time getting here. What are you going to get out of this race? So in my head, I thought, I'll get back on the bike when it gets fixed, get into transition, and I'll maybe do a half a lap of the run, because that won't screw me over. It'll be a really good hit out training wise, and I'll try and pick up a race in 2 weeks' time. So eventually they came, fixed my bike, got back on the course, was riding down from Mirador del Rio, background, American guy in front of me, whose name was David, who I met afterwards. Totally overcooked the corner, came off really hard, and I was like, oh. So I had to stop and ask the ambulance people at the next aid station to go and scrape him off the floor. So I was quite shaken up by that. Got back to transition and started out in the run, and I just had that plan just to stop after the half marathon. And then after that half marathon, Richard, my husband, was there, and he said, I think you're only, 12 minutes back now. And I'm working out in my head, and I'm like, oh, if I keep running like this, I can probably actually get this race. And with 5K to go, I ran past the girl who was in second place. And it was like, it was ridiculous. I tried to sneak past her because I thought, well, I don't really have much left in the tank. And if she hits me with a response, I'm not confident I'm going to be able to do it. So, I ran out into the road behind the car and ran past. Probably completely unnecessary, but a bit of a giggle. Yeah, and so at the end of the race, it transpired that I had been 40 minutes at the side of the road waiting for the assistance.
Well, there must have been a lot of things going on in your head during that kind of process, trying to get back into the race. Or then I suppose maybe because you had said, oh, I'm just going to stop after half, maybe that kind of took the pressure off you a bit.
Yeah, there was a whole series of almost like your chimp comes out, you could get really emotional about it, but nothing good's going to come of that in that space. So how do I very quickly rearrange my goals for this race and get something from it? So that was a really good cold wake-up call into the it's not over till you cross the line, because the other thing is you can't control what other people are doing in the race, and you also don't know what other people who are that far ahead are doing either.
Andrew has a message saying, morning Kat, great to see you still so fit and active. That's good.
Which Andrew is that?
Andrew Fish.
Fishy.
Penny has messaged again saying, what percentage of your FTP did you race Ironman bike leg at?
I'd need to work that out, Penny, but so my FTP, just kind of going through it because I now have the ability to do it in my garage, and I'm not that far off what was, but I don't have the endurance, but I still got that little top end. So I think my FTP when I was racing was about 265, but I probably was weighing about 53 kilograms, and I was racing Ironman, attempting to sit around about 200 watts. So I need to go away and do the maths, Penny.
Did you
by aero? Just gonna do 2 minutes at tempo effort, build it back up again. Sorry, Fergus, what was that?
Yeah, did you do quite a lot of aero testing back then, or was it? Obviously, that's become more... I didn't
do any aero testing in the wind tunnel or anything. But for me, it was finding a balance between sort of comfort and injury management on the bike. So making sure you could run. So I worked really hard with my physio on the bike position.
Yeah, just to make like hip flexor angles and things like that.
Yeah.
Have you kept your race bike?
Nah. No. No, still on the same road bike, okay. But the time trial bike, definitely not.
Yeah. So I know we mentioned Commonwealth Games. How was it kind of representing Scotland rather than Britain?
That's always really special. I know one of the whole reasons that I got involved in sport and from a very early age was I actually remember watching the Los Angeles Games, the Olympics, and seeing the athletes walk around the track representing their country, and then every year, you know, or every 4 years, I'd be glued to the telly, you know, during the course of the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games. And that moment when you do walk around the track is so special. And I always wanted to do it. And so, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And obviously going into Birmingham next year.
Okay, we can relax now and go into, sorry, Fergus, jumping in. That's us finishing that effort, and we're just going to finish off just recovery effort for the next 12 minutes or so.
Yeah, so if you've got any more questions, feel free to ask. We can stay a bit longer if we need to. But yeah,
you need to run away to your home office.
Yeah, yeah, I was just going to say about Birmingham 2022. You're obviously the team manager for Team Scotland triathlon team. Is that something you're passionate about and looking forward to?
Yeah, just really excited to be part of that process for other people, because I know how special it can be, and also just, you know, there's a lot of, one thing that never sat with me particularly well through my triathlon career was that it is a very, and triathlon's even, you know, probably more selfish as an individual, one man or one woman or one person band, essentially. It's very selfish pastime, requires a lot of tolerance from your nearest and dearest, and it's not. I didn't ever think it was. For me, I'm a very purpose-driven person. I never felt that I was doing anything particularly valuable apart from exercising my own ego. And so the opportunity to, you know, contribute back in this way is a very powerful motivator for me. Because I think that sport is so much more than performance numbers, getting more people participating, which is great, but there are so many other positive social impacts that we can have through sport and physical activity, that, you know, I'm really motivated by that.
And what do you think is involved in that role? Kind of working with the athletes closely, like leading into the games and things?
It's very much, from an athlete perspective, going to be athlete focused.
Yeah.
It's what do they need from me rather than what do I assume they want or need. It's a, you know, and we need to go through the selection process, and, you know, what Ferg needs might be really different from what Cat needs. But if I'm taking away the day-to-day logistical stress and strain and getting all that stuff squared away so that you're just concentrating on what you need for your performance, then that's my role at the end of the day. So I'm essentially a glorified dog's body.
That'll be good. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Quite a nice feeling that it's home games again. Almost. So we've had a message from Daryl Baxter. Great to see you, Kat. What's your favourite long run session before an Ironman?
I'm not telling Daryl because he'll steal it. Favourite, or it's never favourite, but I'd never run any longer than, on a long run, probably about 2 hours, but I'd be looking really to be hitting as close to 4 minutes per kilometres as I could in chunks throughout that 2 hour run. So it was not a favourite in any way, shape or form in terms of the grind and the effort level, but a favourite in terms of knowing that you were ready. So it's almost like a benchmark. What's your benchmark run that gives you the confidence and the knowledge that you've put the money in the bank, and you're ready to, reap the reward, gain the interest.
I suppose that kind of translates across swimming and cycling as well, doesn't it?
And yeah, absolutely. Yep. And you're right, Ferg, I would have key sessions that I would be able to say, boom, boom, boom. And they're positive affirmations. So when you have that wobble, like I was always a good one for a little bit of self-sabotage before a race. These demons come in, I'm not ready, haven't done this and this and this. But when you've got that, no one can argue with facts and logic. It's there, it's written down on a bit of paper. And you can go back and you can look in your training diary and you can bash away the negative emotions and the panic by telling yourself, no, it's there, we're good to go.
So we've got a lot of people saying thank you. So Niles said, got to go now, but thanks, Kat. That was fascinating and inspirational.
Pleasure.
Fiona Lothian, thanks. Great way to start the day. Hamish McDonald, thanks from Pentland Tribe, the learner, adults and kids. Good luck in your future travel events. That's from Hamish McDonald.
Thank you.
We've got a few more questions, but obviously it's 8 o'clock, so you don't want to take a few fun questions. So if you could choose a mixed team relay green team, what would it be?
Ooh, like present or
Yeah, more kind of 3 other people in your team.
Well, if we did a Scottish one,
okay, yeah.
that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Oh, that's putting me on the spot. Let's go with people of my contemporary. So I would take Kerry for the swim. We'd have Fraser on a bike leg. Do you have to do everything? I can't remember. Do you do everything? No, you do swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run.
Yeah, you do.
Is it? Yeah. So it'd be about working out how we were gonna kind of apportion the positions. That's the important thing about the team relay is who goes where. So if I think about it like that, yeah, you put Kerry off first because she'd be, first pack swimmer.
Yeah.
She'd hold it on the bike and she'd hold on the run. And then you just want to be maintaining that. So if we did, let's have some Fraser. And then it'd be totally remiss not to have Mr. McNee.
Yeah.
And then I would have to go last because we would just hope by that point that there was enough of a gap there for me just to kick some bahookie on the run.
Increase that gap. So if you could change any rule in triathlon, what would it be? All the officials will be watching.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about this. I don't think it's maybe triathlon specific, but we were really reflecting on how equipment becomes a barrier to access. And so I think there are a lot of, especially in lower level races, where it's about just doing an event, where you still have the same rules and regulations that, maybe a World Cup race has or WTS has, where, there is a little bit of a barrier to access, maybe some stuff in and around there. I don't think there's ever going to be an answer to what the perfect drafting distance is and everything else, there's no, that's just a headache.
Favourite race venue or race location?
Yeah, I always swither between Feldy. Feldy on a good day is amazing. Feldy on a bad day is just purgatory. And then I always loved St. Croix as a place to race.
4 times, is it?
Yeah, 4 or 5, I can't remember. Like I've got my own little family over there. Yeah. We're still in touch. still chat on the phone and email each other. That is kind of one of these races that, because it's such a small place, it'd be like turning up on Skye or Mull with a bit more population.
Yeah.
But you know, when everyone just gets involved, and it just makes it really special.
And finally, final question: any new hobbies during lockdown?
I am learning to ski. You can tell my enthusiasm for that. If anyone can tell me how to gracefully stop on cross-country skis without injuring yourself, then please, answers on a postcard. But no, we bought skis when we moved up to Kingussie, and we bought touring skis, and so I'm also learning to ski downhill and to tour. And I realised that all that guff that I tell people about having a growth mindset completely goes out the window when I try and ski. I have such a fixed mindset. But it's good. I mean, I embrace that. I welcome it. I know there's room to change. But just learning something which is so different.
Yeah, I think as a triathlete, you just need to go in straight line, whereas skiing, got to be a bit more agile, going different ways. And that is quite challenging.
But I mean, really enjoying. So last Friday, took the skis and the boots and attached them to the rucksack, cycled up to the base station at Cairngorm and did Cairngorm and over to Ben McDowie and back as a ski tour. And that's what I would consider my first proper ski tour.
Yeah.
So that was really, really quite cool. So I didn't think I'd get to the stage where I could comfortably go off piste yet. So that was nice.
Cool. Right then, I think we'll have to finish up, but yeah, if you want to kind of finish it off.
Yeah, so thank you, Ferg. That was a total trip down memory lane. It now makes me feel even older for a Friday morning than I would normally feel.
Thank you.
But it was lovely to recollect and reflect. Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's really interesting, really inspiring, and I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy watching that back on YouTube later. And
I certainly won't.
had quite a lot of live people, so that's good. Yeah, like we said in previous weeks, you can watch it on YouTube later. Listen to some of these incredible answers from Kat.
And if anyone's got any questions, then just get in touch with Tri Scotland and they'll ping them my way.
Yeah, perfect.
Excellent. Right. Enjoy your day.
Okay, bye.